Wow, yes, welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, so what originally was going to be a tone dialing video, I'm switching it up, all right? I figured that that would be boring for everyone involved. And so I made the tone already. And what is the switch up? This is going to be like a behind the scenes on me making a SWOLA video. So and I don't know. I guess if this is more fun, I guess we'll see in the views because I'm looking at the analytics of all this and seeing what works. Anyway, okay, let's get into it. So I was going to make the tone dialing video with this Randall RD 45-watt head and a Northern Mauler and an IR that I got from Glenn Fricker, the free IR from it's like 2025. If you search that, it's out there. Okay, it's free IR out there in the world. But yeah, Glenn Fricker's IR and also the Northern Mauler is a Glenn Fricker and Rev pedal. I'm gonna get into the settings and everything later in the video. So yeah, a lot of Northern Mauler, a lot of Glenn Fricker stuff happening over here. Also, one other thing I wanted to say, this Randall 45 watt head, you can get some really sick dime bag tones. It has that like Randall like kind of shrill top end thing that is I kind of look at it as like a signature dime bag thing, but it's in this amp. And yeah, I would definitely check these out if you get the opportunity to. And I will be making some more videos if you are interested in hearing a certain pedal combo, let me know. But yeah, spoiler there. So I did dial in a tone, and that tone is going to be available to all of you on my cloud page for if you have a Nano Cortex or you have the Mini or the Quad Cortex. Not sponsored by any of that. It's just I feel like the best way for me to share those tones with the viewer. And yeah, the neural DSP stuff is pretty good at that. I've noticed that when I'm capturing high gain tones, I need to do things a little bit different. So it's not ideal just yet. I'm I think that might be user error. I'm still learning it a little bit, but I feel like either I need to have like too much gain and then it turns it down and then I turn it back up, or I go less gain and then turn it up. So either way, I feel like if you want a better capture, you want this to see less gain. So it's which makes sense because it's seeing more of the actual signature versus the signature with a bunch of gain on top of it. So that's my assumption anyway. But that would make sense if that's the case. Anyway, I've noticed that with high gain stuff, it's a little bit more difficult to get the exact same, like when you do like the A/B comparison, it's not the same. And I think the tube amps win in that regard. Like just in the room when I'm listening to both, my tube amps sound a little bit better. However, the tube amp setup right now, I got pedals down here, so I would need power for all that and the pedals. I got the amp, and then I got this torpedo, 2 notes torpedo down there running the load for the amp and also dealing with the cab simulation. But anyway, so that's a whole rig right there, right? You know, and that's a lot of shit to fucking haul around. I don't want to have to do all that. That's why this thing's so cool, because like I'm building a pedal board rig so that I can just have a pedal board and a guitar. And I'll have all my tones that I could ever imagine. And this thing's MIDI, so I'm going to have everything mapped out. I'm not going to think about it. The show's going to just happen, and I'm going to have all the tones that I need. That's the way to go about it. And I think, in a live show, sacrificing a little bit of like that extra guitar tone for not only being able to set up faster and also break down faster, like that makes everyone happier, the audience happier, the band's happier, everyone's happy. But also like just in terms of like having to like go around with the thing, like it having less weight, that's gas that's hauling the thing. Like, you know, you're going to get there and they're going to be like, you're going to have to walk up 5 flights of stairs. And then stage is going to be about 5 feet and you're going to have to make everything fit, right? So I feel like having a smaller rig in that case makes things a lot easier. And, you know, when things are just like thought out, and that's why I personally, I like to have it mapped out MIDI. Everything's done. And then, like, I do vocals as well. So if I'm singing and playing, I don't also want to be thinking about what's going on with the pedal board. And, you know, if I have like a wah pedal or something, that's a little bit different. Where I need an expression pedal, that's different. But everything else I want just mapped out. And I think in terms of like a live performance, that's the way to do it. It's a little bit of extra work, but it's ultimately, you're going to have a better show. You're going to have more fun because you're going to be able to get into the music more. That's going to translate into more energy. And overall, just everyone's going to have a better time. When you're not going to have a good time is when that stuff doesn't work and then you're scrambling. So you kind of need to have like your main setup and then a backup. So if something crashes, you're not like trying to doctor things. You're just immediately switching to your backup setup and you're ready to go. So that's a little talk on that. But yeah, the original idea here with this was to dial in an amp, you know, the old school way. Like I feel like that's becoming like a lost thing where it's like we have presets and we have so many options and menus and uh, there's just something special about plugging in a pedal, an amp, into a cabinet. And in my case, I like going digital because if I want to record, I don't have to mic up a cabinet. Everything's just ready to go. The exact sound that I create is in the DAW and I'm ready to rip. So that's my setup. I like this hybrid setup. But there's just something special about like dialing in an amp, getting a cool tone, and then like having some riffs just, you know, blossom from that. So there's something magical about that. And yeah, that was the original concept for this video. But I thought it'd be super boring and me just sitting here dialing in an amp. So I made the tone and I captured the tone. That's available to you. Links below. And now a coffee. In my time to the coffee maker, I've discovered that I have an accent, a very thick New York accent. Oh yeah, that's the whole ham sandwich, baby. That's it right there. Don't ask me where this accent came from. All right, welcome back. So yeah, this is a behind the scenes SWOLA video. So I selected a guitar. That's the first step. And with that, you want a guitar that's in tune. The electronics are good. It's not going to fight you. And ultimately, it has a job and it's ready to go. So if you need to spend time before recording, getting the guitar in tune, set up, that might be necessary. One of the perks of having a few guitars in one tuning. So then, you know, if you sit down and you want to record something and you're feeling inspired, and the guitar's not working out, switch guitars real quick. So yeah, buy that other guitar, bro. Yeah, excellent financial advice there. And yeah, that's the Jackson SL2. It has Seymour Duncan distortions. It's a very cool guitar, maple fretboard. It's a lot of fun to play, and I like it. Okay, and that's going into, we go over here, I have a DI box, and now the DI box, that's going to the DAW. That's, I have that set up inside of the DAW. There's a gate that's basically triggered off of the clean guitar. So it's gating from the clean guitar instead of gating from the distorted amp tone. It's a better way of of gating. You get more control over it. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that too much, but that's why that's there. So then that's then going into the Polytune right here, Polytune 3. Excellent tuner, built-in buffer, really good pedal. And then next we have the Northern Mauler. Now here's the settings that I'm using currently. Let me see if I can get this in focus. My God. Yeah, not enough light, but yeah, this is the best I can do. Handheld shots over here, trying something different. So yeah, Northern Mauler, really cool pedal, 2 pedals in one, and actually doing a lot of the heavy lifting for this tone, specifically the growl. As you can see, I have that turned up pretty high. That's like the chainsaw side of this tone, and that's adding a lot of character. That's really what I want this thing to do. So it's doing 2 things really. It's doing like the modern boost with like that Rev Gen 3 side, and then with the more HM2 side, the chainsaw tone, that's adding some extra like saturation and harmonics that weren't there. So being able to blend that in is really cool. It's a really good pedal. Really good for leads. So yeah, definitely want to look into that. This whole setup in general is actually pretty good for leads too. You can really get like some dime bag tones going. But yeah, so that's the third. We'll call it the third pedal in the chain, even though the first is a DI box. But yeah, so then that's going into this TC Electronics Sentry. Not really a lot of light, so it's kind of hard to see. But yeah, there's a Sentry gate right there. Really good gate. Very simple chain. Really what I do, I have this set up this way, so if I want to swap out an overdrive pedal, it's real quick. I can go right between the tuner and the gate. And then that's going to all my tube amps. Below that here I have the torpedo. Everything's kind of out of focus. Here we go. So below that I have the torpedo, and that's handling the load for the tube amp. And then also I can cycle between different IRs, which is really a good way of going about changing up your guitar tone in a mix versus changing up and dialing up your amp. Anyway, so here's the amp that we're going to be using today. This is the Randall RD45 head. Really cool amp. This was when Mike Fortin was working with Randall, along with this Randall Thrasher over here. But that's not what this is about. I like my Randall amps. I like my Dimebag Daryl. And yeah, so what's cool about this whole thing is I'm going to be capturing it with that guy right there. And so this whole thing, this whole sound is going to be saved right onto that. And, you know, I could actually just make that tone, save it onto there, and then make the SWOLA with that, which would be the most accurate way of representing the tone that I want to share to everyone else. I might do that. And I just covered the mic with my hand. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, this is my little setup. You get a little different view of my amp wall over here. So this is kind of a work in progress, but got my JSX. That's my beloved JSX. The Randall Thrasher. This amp is, well, if you know, you know, because I think it might be one of the best amps of all time. It does a lot more than just high gain. You can get some really good blues tones out of it, some really good clean tones out of it. It's just a great amp. Okay, full stop. And then this right here, this is my first Randall amp. And yeah, I really like this one. You can get some Dimebag tones, as I was saying. But yeah, 45 watts. It's a little ripper, 2 channels. And yeah, I got this little rack set up over here. So back there, I have power for all the pedals. I can swap everything out. It's a little work in progress over here, but yeah, I got some different pedals to choose from. And yeah, the other thing I forgot to mention. So this setup, I have two outs, and that's going to the interface. So the first one being this DI over here, as I mentioned, that's the clean guitar tone. So I have a DI for my performance. The second one is the output of the Torpedo Live, and that is like the full amp tone. So that's that. With that, let me just get a little bit of my coffee. Two channels for the guitar. So your DI and your amp tone. I'll go into more reasons into why later on in the video, but here's a look at my vocal chain. So I have an analog vocal chain going in. So I'm using this Art Pro channel. So this has, it's a mic pre, it's compression, it's an EQ, and then that's going down to this, which is a de-esser. I plan on adding some more interesting stuff down here. But yeah, and then this is the Pro VLA2 compressor. It's a stereo compressor. So the way I have this set up is I send a full mix out. I'm using Reaper, so I'm using RIA insert. I'm sending the full mix out, and then I can do analog compression to digital mix, and then send it back and record it on a different channel. It's a fun thing. It's a fun little thing to do. It actually does add some interesting character to your tracks. It's not the only thing you can do with it, but that's what I've been doing with it. It's a lot of fun. They're really not that expensive. This like art stuff is pretty cheap for, you know, the value and what you get out of it. So something to look out for if, you know, you're on the budget friendly side of this stuff. Stuff gets pretty pricey, and ultimately, you know, we all want stuff that's good, that, you know, we can write music with, that doesn't sound like total shit. So I've been having a good experience so far with this stuff. This is and it's also important to note, this is half of the chain, so this is like correcting some things. Another thing I'm also using is this microphone right here. So this is the SE Dynacaster, and this is a cool microphone. It has, and I'm not in focus, but it has like a built-in, I believe it's like, it's either 20 or 30 decibels of additional gain. So, and then there's a couple dip switches down there, so you can like customize like the frequency response. Very cool microphone. I like that. I was going to get an SM7B, but then you need a cloud lifter, and I was doing some research. I found out about that microphone, and yeah, I like it. So shout out to Christian Cole from, was it Cole Keller Studios? Yeah, I believe that's where I first saw that. And yeah, that dude makes some really cool stuff, really interesting videos on YouTube and stuff. So I've learned a lot from his channel. So giving him a big shout out. Anyway, yeah, so that's a little look there. So you got vocals. I also have, I'll run bass. Usually I'll just do like Neural DSP Parallax. And what's cool about, I mean, this is the Behringer, what is it, 1820? Yeah, it's the Euphoria UMC 1820. This is another budget-friendly thing, but yeah, you get eight channels, and those are Midas preamps in there. Those are really good preamps. It's got this monitoring, so you can use this as a mixer. Get a good mixer mix, right? Make sure everything's dialed in nice, and then switch over back to like your standard monitoring. Nice little feature to do. Or even if, yeah, not enough light. I need to get more lights in here. This was really just also a test for me and my camera. So this will be fun to edit. But yeah, what's cool about the monitoring is, like, you know, if I just want to jam, I have everything wired up. I can turn this over to monitoring, and now it's just my amp playing through my monitors. Right? I don't have to turn on a computer. I have to turn all this stuff on. Not this stuff, but like this has to be on. So yeah, that's what that's for. It's really cool. It's cool, like cool feature. But then you also have these two inputs right here. So for bass, I'm just using parallax, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm blending my bass tone to my guitar tone. I want them to work together, and it's a lot easier to blend the tone after the fact using digital, plug-in. Makes that a lot easier, because otherwise you have to reamp just to get the proper tone, just to do that same procedure. So digital rules all the way there, saving tons of time. And yeah, I ultimately, with the SWOLAs, I'm trying to get it finished. You know, get it past the finish line. So, but some different guitar tones. It gives me, using different guitar tones gives me a different way of trying different things out in the mix and seeing how it works with the drums and with the bass. I also have two different bass guitars for two different tunings, and I have to do a lot of different settings in Parallax just to get them to work, because they're completely different. So that's another factor. Your bass tone will and can add and also ruin your guitar tone. So something to look out for. We want good bass tone as well. But yeah, so that's that. And my leg is asleep now. One other thing I forgot to mention: these Oltex picks. I've mentioned it before. Oltex picks, I think they sound the best in terms of like the pick hitting the string with high gain. That's my opinion. They're also comfortable. They don't fall. They don't like fly out of my hand, like if my hand sweats from playing. So I don't drop them. That's another good reason. But yeah, there's like the lettering is raised, so there's a little bit of grip, which is also nice. Anyway, that's not what this is totally about, but another part of the guitar signal chain for you. And yes, so another thing I forgot to mention, and I'll maybe get a shot of this. I have in the effects loop of the amp, I have a digital modeler, and that's there so if I want reverb or delay, right? But it could actually, it's a NAMM player, so I could use that as a full rig, but right now it's just delay and reverb. So just wanted to mention that as well. Reason why is because it has its own battery, so I don't need to run additional power up there. It just makes things easy. I can just charge it when I'm not using the amp. Kind of cool. And so yeah, I just wanted to mention that. It's in there. So with this tone, I have... All right, so let's just like break this down, right? Because it can get complicated. And I like to like make templates off of things. What's going on here? Let me just clear that. So I've been working off of the past SWOLA so that I try to keep them like somewhat uniform, but it also shows like some different like growth in terms of like whether things worked or not when I try to mix something. Hello. And so I have I have the guitar bus here, 3 guitar channels. What I'll do is this bottom channel here, that's right dead center in the middle, and that's so when I'm riffing, I have the guitar coming out of both speakers. Once I get a take that I like, I'll move it over. So this is on the left channel, and then I have a right channel. Now, I was mentioning before, I have, for my guitar tone, you can see I have a DI, and then I have the amp tone. Now, if we go into the bus, go into the effects, you can see I have the SMG cock blocker. This is sidechain gate. So if we go down into here, I have sidechain activated. Go into key listen. That's gonna be, and it's not on right now, but here we go. Let's see. So you should just be hearing the DI right now. And that's what the gate should just be hearing, right? So that's the idea there. You got some some nice controls over that. The main thing here, this thing can get real aggressive, and you just want to make sure that it's not choking your tone. And it could actually start taking away some of the gain. That might be a desirable thing in terms of like your mix. Like if your guitar is just like too much, you can actually reduce some gain that way. But yeah, it's not ideal. You're actually like kind of taking tone away. So something to just keep an eye out for. There's definitely a sweet spot with the threshold. And now on my last SWOLA, I was using the Fort and Nameless. That's why that's here. This is a cool plugin. I've actually got to use it more often, I'll be honest. I'm going for other plugins before this one, other Neural DSP plugins. And this one's great. My last mix, I didn't really have to do much. I have like a preset that I made. And then going down the chain here, I have some EQ. So that's just cutting some bottom end. Cutting some of that like kind of wonky mid-range that you don't need. In this case, it looks like I'm boosting a little bit around 120 hertz, so that like you get a little bit extra like chug in there. And then this looks like a little bit of a 4K cut, and I'm cutting a little top end as well. I think it's good to cut top end to give room for cymbals and vocals and stuff, but this is something too you could mess around with in terms of like how open you want your guitars to be within the mix itself. So then we have some saturation. This is cool because with this bright, as dark and bright, the tone, that really affects things. And I find like if I have a really dense mix, I can adjust this a little bit either way and find like a nice sweet spot. Just like another little trick that you could try. And then going down the chain, this is the Thomas Munt Loud Max free limiter. This thing is awesome. Okay. Learned about this one from Glenn Fricker. Learned about a lot of things from Glenn Fricker. Shout out to that guy. For real. He's done a lot for the community. And a lot for me. So yeah, this thing is free and it's really good. Like I have other plugins that I've paid for, and I'll find myself going for this one because it just works. It's quick, and ultimately that's what I want. And I could also stack these. That's a lot of fun too. Like if you have two of them, you have one like kind of really like squash the transient a bit. And then the other one is really more for limiting. It's just to like, you know, maybe you set the output, like here I have the output set to negative 0.1 dB, right? So that's just limiting right at the very end of the guitar tone so that I'm not going over unity. That's the idea. And then, yeah, so just squishing it a little bit with this 1.8 right here. That's the beauty of this, is you can get a good so I try to get everything set up in Reaper or in the DAW, like so I have some headroom for my mastering. sometimes I find the guitar, it's not sitting, in terms of like relative loudness, it might be a little bit quiet, right? So that's where when I'm going over to here and I'm adjusting this threshold right here. So versus turning the volume up, I'll leave this alone and then I'll just adjust right here. And this is just a small adjustment, but it's just like a critical move to get the guitar right where I want it, right? So with that, we got to talk about the bass. As I mentioned before, here's my bass chain. So this is all digital inside the box. So I'm just going bass into the interface. I have an EQ. I'm cutting some low end that I don't need. I want that's for the kick drum. This top end is here just to add a little bit more life to the DI track. Now when we go in here, I have my own preset that I made, and I'm cutting mid-range. That's where the guitar is. I don't want the bass there. Now with the low end, I want the low end to be present. So if I was to mute the bass, all of a sudden like all this body is missing, right? But when the bass is there, it's not completely taking over the entire dynamic range to where I can't hear anything else and it sounds like everything's super muffled. So there's a balance right there, right? So but that's where I'm going to this right here, the low range, and I'm adjusting that back and forth according to the guitar tone and the drums, getting it to sit right. Same thing with this high end. Now the high end, this is how I look at this as like my detail, right? And so I could use like, I'm playing bass with a pick, right? So, and I might blend a little bit of that pick attack in with the guitar pick attack. Often that could sound pretty cool, but too much of that becomes overwhelming. So I'm going over to here and I'm dialing the high end of my bass tone right here. All right, going down the chain, I got some more saturation. This is just to add some of those overtones. Everything else in this mix has a bunch of saturation, so you really need saturation on everything, otherwise it doesn't really sound right. And then I'm EQing a little bit more just to make sure it's actually the same thing, a little different. But I'm EQing a little bit, just like making sure everything is where I want it to be, essentially. That's what that's doing. Then I have a clipper, and that's just, again, getting things where I want it to be, in this case with dynamic range. So with the bass guitar, I don't want it super dynamic. I want it to sit right with the guitar so there's no dropout of bass and everything stays super heavy, right? And that's where this comes into play. And I'm stacking that with another instance of the Loud Max. And what's cool about the Loud Max too is you have this this dial right here, so I'm able to really like this meter, so I'm able to see exactly what my dynamic range is when it hits the Loud Max, and I'm going for somewhere between 6 and 12. Really depends. Sometimes if I'm stacking these, the first instance of Loud Max, it's gonna have even more. It might even have up to like 18, even more than that. Like I'm trying to squash the bass. The second one will have less, and ultimately I want less dynamic range when I get down to the end of the signal chain, so that my bass tone is really fat, sits right. The EQ is there to, the way I've best heard this described is like layers of a cake. So, or you could look at it as pieces of a puzzle. Everything needs to fit together nicely. So no two things can be in the same place at the same time. So your EQ with your bass and your guitar, they need to work together. And you need to think of it in that regard. It's two instruments, but in the context of a mix, it's coming together as one sound. So if you want things to be super heavy, That's one way to look at it. That's how I'm looking at it anyway, in terms of these SWOLA videos. Next, I have my lead channel. This is for my lead guitars. And the way this is set up, I have an EQ. Well, first off, I'm using the Neural DSP Mesa Boogie Mark II C Plus Suite. This is a really cool amp. I hope to one day try one of these. These things are amazing. It's really cool that this plugin exists, and I recommend this plugin. I love it. I get a lot of really good tones. This is a preset that I've made. I've utilized this on quite a few of my different SWOLA videos. It's my zazzy ass lead, and it's very zazzy. Okay. So yeah, got my zazz tone, and then that's going into an EQ. We can go back to the zazz tone, actually talk about it a little bit more because it's very zazzy. All right, so I got compression into an overdrive into chorus. Okay. With the chorus, that's like Eddie Van Halen meets like Arch Enemy lead tone. That's the idea there. Okay, then you got your beautiful amp, your beautiful Mesa Boogie. Yes. And then so moving on, we have the here's your 4x12. What am I even saying? Here's your 2x12. Coffee's wearing off. And I'm using a 57 and a 414, okay? Condenser and a dynamic. I got some EQ going on here. Take a look at that. And here's my delay, no reverb. So yeah, that's my zazzy ass lead. Really cool sound, really cool. And yeah, we got some EQ. Now with the EQ, I'm cutting even more low end than I would with my rhythm guitar. I don't need low end for a lead. And then with the high end, I like to cut some of that as well. Often the lead could be too bright and too like overbearing. So cutting some of the top end makes it sit a little better. That's something to play around with. Sometimes you might want some of the top end air on your lead channel. I find that this is a good place to be right here. All right, I'll go back and forth with this. Really find what sits right, but that's the idea there. And then that's going into the loud max, and once again, just keeping everything nice and uniform, so nothing's overly dynamic. And that's just a mix move, just to keep things nice and together. I don't have any additional saturation on here. If I need it, I'll add it, but it's currently not on there. So that's the guitars. Now with my vocals, I have quite a few different things going on. Earlier in the video, you saw the analog side of things. That's going into another instance here. We have some additional saturation. Why not, right? So I have a lot of things on here, and maybe some things I turn off, right? And sometimes for whatever reason I had utilized it. But this is the current signal chain as is, right? So you saw the analog stuff. That's going into heat, and then I'm going into lo-fi. Again, adding just some character. That's all I'm looking for with these two here. And then the EQ, I'm cutting a lot of just things I don't need, right? So all that low end that I don't need. So I'm cutting some of this mid-range just to like make my voice sit a little bit better. Adding a little top end just to have a little extra shimmer. Then we have the clipper. So that's just, again, getting the loudness right. I'm using that with Loud Max in tandem, and that's just to get the dynamic range where I want it to be in terms of the context of the mix. Now another cool thing that I'd like to talk about, well really two cool things. This plugin right here, this Sub Destroyer, I have a lot of JST plugins on here, and I've used a lot of different plugins. I find that these are just easy And in terms of SWOLA stuff, I'm just trying to write some quick, easy songs and have fun with it, get my ideas out there. These plugins are good for that. So this sub destroyer takes a lot of the manual work of making your sub drops. It takes a lot of that work out, right? So you have drive, you have harmonic enhancement, and then over here you can control the length of the sub drop itself, what kind of waveform it is, the start and end frequency. You can test it right here. All right. So if you want to do some ridiculous shit, sky's the limit with this one. And then, when you're doing ridiculous shit, you're going to want to throw that into even more saturation, right? And so that's why that's here. And I can do a bunch of ridiculous shit with that. Okay, and I think that's my quota of ridiculous shit. That's going into the clipper. And I keep 2 separate tracks with sub drops because sometimes I'll have like a longer sub drop, a shorter sub drop, different tones. I could automate all that into one. Find it easier to just have 2. And so that's that. Now, in terms of setting up your session with SWOLA in particular, I have a click track here. And so what I'll do is I'll just make a channel, and then I'll go up here into, where is it? Insert click source. That'll add your click track onto a channel. I'll still have the metronome here, and then I'll also use pre-roll. But yeah, this is just an additional count in. Makes things a little easier. Something that I'm looking for in the beginning. Yeah, I don't need to explain accounting, but yeah, it's a really quick and easy way to do that. And then the drums. So every single, what I do before I drop the drum track in, I'll go up here, I'll go and I'll insert the tempo, all that information, set up the grid, bring the drums in. So now we have our drums, and then I'll set up some markers. So I'll listen to the drum track, and then I'll see, try and get an idea of the structure of how I'm hearing a song. And then I'll try to just, hear what some riffs might sound like to those drums. Best way of putting it. So that's what I did here, and so I didn't waste a ton of time. I got a riff going, and this is on the left side now because I have to double this. So I have this other track here. I'm gonna double that up. I'm gonna add some bass. I'm not gonna add a lead guitar. Maybe I add a vocal, maybe I add a sub drop, but this is the start, right? Up here I have my master channel. When we get into mastering, I don't actually know if we'll get into mastering, so I'll show you what I'm working with. So I have a preset right here, just like a standard EQ curve. I'm trying to keep things somewhat cohesive. Another instance of loud max. Again, I'm just trying to keep dynamics somewhat the same. Then I have ozone going, and that's my EQ, dynamic EQ, dynamics, my imager, so I'm getting some stereo image, and then my maximizer, and that's for loudness. So the whole thing with mastering, I want to get my mix as close to what I want before mastering. Mastering is then there to just add a little bit of extra sauce. Okay, I'm adding a little EQ, and I'm adding a little bit of squashing the dynamics a little bit, and just really getting things under control, pushing out some of the top end. So low end stays in the center. Some of the top end has a little bit of width, just to spread some of the frequency out a little bit. The maximizer I use So I'm aiming at 14 LUFS. I believe this is the current standard for YouTube. I'm actually aiming at 11.5, so I'm actually a little bit louder. I was aiming at 14 LUFS. I'm a little bit louder now, and I'm also this will change. And the way I look at this is like the when I'm mastering the song, there'll be like the loudest thing, and then everything else. And this threshold here really helps bring those two things together. So you can really decide, like, do I want the loudest thing in my song to really sit on top of everything, or do I want things to sit a little bit closer, a little bit more uniform? So that's the idea here with threshold. I have true peak on. I have the ceiling at -1 dB. I think that's the proper setting. And this is a cool plugin. You could go into the Master Assistant and you could give it a song and be like, master my music like this. You could do like mix referencing, gain matching. There's tons of stuff, right? These different modes here. There's a lot of different character. I've played around with this and I find this is what I like. So that's the master channel. I have that turned off while I'm recording. That's for later. So yeah, I got that all set up. Now what I need to do, I need to double this guitar track. I need to add a bass track, and then maybe I'll add some vocals, some sub drops. Let's go into these keys right here real quick. I got this going. So this is the machine. I have that set up. Really cool setup, really cool thing. Not on camera, but maybe I'll get a shot of that. And what's cool about those, you can get those used, and you just contact Native Instruments and say, hey, I bought this thing used. I need a license key and software activation. And then, wait for an email. And then all of a sudden this thing works, and now you have, like a lot of control over your DAW, a lot of different sounds, because now you have access to all of their sounds. There's a lot of really good stuff. I could make a whole video on that. I'm not really going to get into that, but I have touchpad now, so I have a sequencer. I have a bunch of different stuff. I plan on doing a lot with that. I'm still actually learning a lot. It's it's completely different than anything I'm really used to, but it's very cool. It's a very cool tool to have, and something to look out for in terms of, like, if you're looking for a studio upgrade, you can do a lot with that. Anyway, so what we're working with here is I have machine. This is like my main tone generation sequencer. What I'll do is I'll put the I'll create like an empty MIDI item within Reaper, and I'll just either draw or perform, or map everything out in Reaper. Use the tones in here. Then we got a chorus. I got some extra saturation. Extension, this is adding some ambience, just like some additional character, and some depth, right? That's really what I'm trying to do here with this as well. This is not active, but this is if I'm just like, if the music calls for it, I have this here so I can do some different stutter effects, pitch shifts. I got clipping now, so and stereo imagery. So down here is just doing limiting, and then even more saturation. So this is just like like I mentioned before, everything's really heavily saturated. Your keys, you want tons of saturation, especially with like high gain guitars. So that's what's going on here. And yeah, this is a lot of fun. But yeah, the machine, another thing to look out for. Okay, so I have to make that guitar track, so I'm going to double that up. I'm going to make a bass track, maybe add some vocals, Yeah, this is kind of like the start of it, right? So I get the guitar, get the tone, try to figure out the vision. I listen to the drums, and really like once I get that first riff down, then I kind of know where I'm heading. And so I add the second guitar, I add the bass, starts sounding more like a complete song because I have that foundation. And then from there, I'm deciding, do I add vocals? Do I add a synth? Do I add leads? Like, what is my top line, right? So I have my rhythm tracks down. And then, we're into mastering, and that's how I do it. So thank you for watching. Really appreciate you. And you have a good night. Again, the tone that I made, that I'm using in this video and in the SWOLA 96 video, link below. That's my gift to you. And thank you for watching. Good night. Peace.